Well, thanks, Eddie, for welcoming me back here today, this morning. I'm Peter McCabe, and this man's brought his newspaper, so he's obviously not going to listen. If you want to give me your newspaper, maybe I'll read it, and you can do the talk. You're fine. I'm only joking. So yes, thanks very much, Eddie, for letting me know this horrible afternoon. So hopefully it'll clear up by the time I'm finished about 6 o'clock. I'm finished in about 45 minutes. So this is the first time I've done this talk, so I'm actually not sure when I'll be finished, but it will not be, certainly not be after 1:15. Uh, so, uh, so yes, so this talk is called the corridor of power. So it's linked with it's the corridor in question is at the Royal Victoria Hospital on the Grosvenor Road there. So folks of a certain generation, and I include myself in that generation, because I can remember when you went up to the Royal, I visited my granda in there. And in those days, off the Victorian corridor, there was 20 different corridors, and they're all named after people. Uh, and there's just one. So the area is all changed now. The corridor is all changed, but the boards and the donation boards and the ward names more or less still exist. So, and there's a definite bias to East Belfast in in the corridor. So I'm gonna rattle through, and because there's 20 wards, I think we're going to talk about 20 people, uh, usually from East Belfast, who played an integral role in the development of the Royal Victoria Hospital. Um, so I say it's all changed now, but this is not a good start. This is the Victorian corridor here. So this back in the day, this picture is still up there. So there is it's the end of the wards, and the access is from the other side. So you couldn't do an equivalent photograph of this because it's all changed since it opened in 1903. Um, so say that's up in the hospital. That image is up in the hospital. This is from a press clipping from the time when the hospital itself opened in 1903. Richard remembers it opening. And, I was only I picked on some other. I picked the bad time there because you were putting something in your mouth. Trying to do it secretly. So you can see here, Royal Victoria Hospital, southern aspect of wards of southeast corner, showing balconies, large casement windows, sanitary turrets, and residential quarters. So this is the residential quarters here, where the medical staff would have lived. And then this is this is the corridor here. You can actually see looks like a couple of nurses sitting there. And this is how it is today from the outside. So they basically sheared off all of the wards, and it's a car park now. So as you can see here, it's um, a, ambulance area. Because it's Belfast ambulance, and then this is this is from the other side. So again, they've just got rid of the wards themselves, but the corridor still exists. So as you perhaps know, this is the corridor here. Kind of stood in the middle of the corridor, looking west and then east. In these two photographs, and you might be able to see just there's some detail here, some plaques here. So I'm going to talk about some of the plaques. This is a lady here, and there's a bust of this lady, and she was integral in the opening of the hospital in terms of funding it. And she lived for the majority of her life in East Belfast. So, it's a lady. Anybody like to guess who it is? No. It's a lady called Lady Perry, and Margaret Montgomery Perry. So she was married to Viscountess Perry. In other words, the main man in the shipyard. So around the time of Titanic, etc. So this statue is here overlooking the corridor. And this is it here, uh, from a different angle. And you can perhaps see it's mentioned here, Henry Carlisle. Justin, can you maybe adjust see if you can adjust the get a bit clearer there, just on just using that the top one. Aye, that's perfect. That was it. That's yeah, that's much better. Thank you. And yes, you need to look before you put your glasses on. So this is Margaret Perry here, and Rusie in the second image to the right, she's commemorated as. Actually, I've just that's the first deliberate mistake. So it's not Lady Perry. Is Lady, Lady McCullough. Maybe I haven't said if I hadn't said it, you would have noticed. But I just noticed there, Lady McCullough. She was the oops. She was the wife of Grosvenor McCullough. Grosvenor McCullough was referred to as Belfast Stick Whittington because he was the Lord Mayor so often. Like uh, he was 18 years. He was Lord Mayor. That's his wife. That will not make the next presentation. This is Lady Perry here, the one lady I was going to talk about, and who was certainly instrumental in the development of the hospital and the opening of it. She was born in 1857, and in 1879 she married her cousin, William James Perry, and he eventually became the chairman of Harlan Wolff. Lady Perry, well, Margaret Perry was hugely involved in her husband's business affairs, which was unusual for the time. Uh, she would often accompany him on business trips and visit the shipyard regularly, getting to know the managers and some of the workers. She would work with her husband on engineering designs and financial planning in the evenings, at first from her home in Belfast and then from their London office. So uh, there's a plaque tour here. Says this hospital owes its origin to the Right Honourable W.J. Perry and his wife. Really, Margaret was the driving force ever behind it. Of Ormston and Belfast, who not only contributed largely to its construction and equipment, in other words, hospital, but by their untiring efforts in connection with its erection, furnishing, and endowment, enabled it to be opened free of debt and made it an efficient medium for the relief of the sick and suffering poor, and it to perpetuate the memory of their many deeds of kindness to an interest in the hospital and to encourage others to do likewise. This ward bears the name W.J. Perry. So when I went to Inst, at the houses there, were divided up 6 different houses, named after people who had previously attended the school, and obviously studied a lot harder than I did. And one of them was Perry, so I was in Perry, and I never that was my house. I never thought much about it when I was there, but that's just named after this man, William James Perry.
If I could ask you, is there a link between them and the Perry Park here?
Yes,
Just up on Lee.
yes,
Saturday.
yes. Well, what's your language? You know,
Oh, sorry.
it is associated with another local school. You're right, but and I think it is. I don't know what the connection is.
I just asked it's a local language.
Yes, no, you're right. I should have mentioned that. I think it's possibly on land previously owned by the Purries, or else they funded the park. Then we're not the we're not.
The other ones.
Yes, well, actually, I'm not both that fond. Oh, this is being recorded, but I'm only the one being recorded. So yes, there is a connection, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. I must find out for when I do this talk properly. So there's the Perry ward that was mentioned in the big plaque. You can see Perry there, and there's all these little naming plaques here. I'll mention some of those again, focusing on East Belfast shortly. And then this other ward, you can see they've just literally closed, sealed it off, and then gotten rid of everything that's behind that. So say there's 20 wards, all now gone. Shame they didn't keep one even to maintain it. But William Hurry, he served as Lord Mayor in 1896 and 1897. And so Margaret served as a Lady Mayoress. And she was described by Frederick Hamilton Temple in Blackwood, the first markets of Dufferin and Ava. In other words, that's why Blackwood, the Blackwood golf course is out there, neighbouring on to Clandyboy, where they lived. And he described Lady Perry as the most charming and most popular lady mayoress who ever sceptered a city or disciplined a husband. Interesting that that was seen as her role to discipline her husband. And I said earlier, he was also her cousin. So that's why they didn't have any issue. Obviously, didn't have any issue. Didn't have any children because they were their first cousins. But the Perry's greatest, or certainly Margaret Perry's greatest contribution to Belfast was her fundraising work for the new Royal Victoria Hospital, which was to replace the old Belfast General Hospital and also to celebrate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. Under Perry's direction, the campaign to raise £100,000 to build a 300-bed hospital was reached in under a year. Her husband donated £5,000, she gave £2,000 and was later gave an additional £11,000 to ensure the project was completed debt-free, as it said in the plaque there. She did a campaign to raise a further £100,000 endowment for the hospital for expansion and running costs. That's huge money back in after 1903. And this allowed for the purchase of equipment, resulting in two of the wards of this already seen being named after the Perrys. Lady Perry served as chair on the ladies' committee and the nursing committee, and she was recognised as the single most important benefactor to of the hospital, serving as president of the hospital from 1904 until her death. In 1929, 1931, she donated 1,000 guineas and £1,000 by radium for cancer treatment and would give generous Christmas presents to patients and staff every year, as well as Harlan Wolff employees. So she was a very, very generous lady. I've said before as well about, Harlan Wolff. Anybody remember how many people worked? Kenneth, do you remember how many people worked at Harlan?
I do.
Yeah, that's why I didn't pick you that time, I'm sure. So I,
You asked me that.
I know that. I'm nothing if not predictable. So that's so that this is one of the name plaques, and this is, as you see here, it says the Ormison plaque, named in recognition of a donation of £500 to the endowment fund from a friend of Mrs. Margaret Perry. So Ormison, as you perhaps know, is where the Perrys lived. So the house still exists to this day. This is the photograph of the two Perrys outside of Ormiston. I don't think they were going out. They were going. They were. I don't think they were going out to Stewart's, but they were certainly dressed up for a grand occasion. I can't remember what the grand occasion was. But this is them out in front of Ormiston. That's a sketch of Ormiston there, their little house. It was actually built for the Coon Barbers of Thread of Hilden direction. Then the Perrys moved in. So it wasn't actually originally built for, so that's not right. Then Edward Harlan moved in, and then, as in Harlan Wolff, I'll mention him again shortly. And then after that, then Perrys moved in. And you can see then that this is it here, and there's a lake. The lake still exists, and in the grounds. And this is the time when the Ormiston was owned by Campbell College. So perhaps showing this photograph before as well here, but it didn't speak to Ian's talk. But you can see this is from Ormiston here, where Lady and Lord Perry were photographed there previously. But this man here, he was a man called Tom Garrett. Tom Garrett was a teacher at Campbell in those days, but you can see from his very negative body language, the folded arms, folded legs, didn't particularly enjoy it, it seems. So then he went over to the dark side. He went over to Inst. So he was a teacher. He was the headmaster, sorry, at Inst when I was there. So he wasn't exactly a bundle of laughs, as you can see from that. But then, sure, headmasters aren't supposed to be bundles of laughs. But again, I might maybe said previously about this fella here. He's maybe done the unthinkable and left Campbell and gone to Methody. So you can see there, his face seems to be tippexed out. So that's Ormiston as it is today, and it's now it's a private house. So for many years, it was where the Ayrshire Rescue were based. In other words, nowhere near the sea, particularly, or the mountains. But it's now been taken over and restored as a family house, and it is now a guy called Peter Rooney, who's and his family live in the house, and they are behind the Argendo. So it's good that the house jewellery. It's good that the house is a private residence again, not just kind of apartments. It's not recent. The police did have it prior to Ayrshire Rescue, yeah. Because my outlaws used to live in Hawthorne Road, so in those days you accessed that Ormiston from Hawthorne Road, but nowadays you access it through Perry Park, not that Perry Park. So off the Belmont Road. This is another of the donation plaques. I'm seeing here in memory of Dr. James Cumming, who's tendered consideration for the sick poor, great skill as a physician and rare personality impressed all who were privileged to know him. A special fund of £10,000 towards the maintenance of this ward was collected by Margaret and Perry from the following friends and patients. So these are kind of that's why I called it the talk. Well, one of the reasons I called the talk the corridor of power, because these are all the movers and shakers of Belfast back in the day. Many of them lived in East Belfast. So, and this is the ward then after Dr. James Cumming. Dr. James Cumming was a prominent physician, as it said there in the plaque, and there was then when Perry spent a lot of his time as when he was the director or chief executive of Harlan Wolff, he spent a lot of his time in London, and then a man called George Cumming moved into Ormiston. So I presume it's a relation of Dr. James Cumming. There's another plaque then. This is the last big one we'll talk about. In memory of the late Thomas Henry Ismay, founder of the White Star Line. This ward bears his honoured name, a sum of £10,000 again, generously voted by the shareholders in the Oceanic Steam Navigation Company Limited at their annual general meeting held 1st May 1901 towards the funds of this hospital as a permanent memorial to one who was closely identified with the prosperity of Belfast and its charities. So this is Thomas Henry Ismay to the right, sorry, to your left. And then this is his son, Bruce Ismay, to your right. So Thomas Henry Ismay was, he lived until 1889, so that's why the plaque's in his memory. His eldest son, Joseph Bruce, known as Bruce, he was the managing director of the White Star Line. So this is him here. So what's he best known for? Titanic and doing what and the sinking? He did, yeah. I'm waiting for you, Kenneth, to get that right. Yeah, he got there in the end. He got off in a lifeboat. So quite controversially, whilst for example, Perry wasn't on the maiden voyage; he was too ill to travel. But certainly, his a relation of his, Thomas Andrews, went down with the ship, as did Captain Smith, Edward Smith. But Ismay got into a lifeboat. Some say disguised as a woman, woman and children first. So there's been a play written about, it's called The Sinking of Bruce Ismay, and saying that after leaving Titanic, rather than going down with the ship, by leaving it, then that was he was persona non grata, and he lived for many years out in as far away, and he lived in Ireland, but he lived as far away as he could get in Connemara in County Galway, at a place called in the Gaeltacht, a place called Costello. He lived in Costello Lodge, so for many years he didn't do well out of the Titanic inquiry, etc. So that's the Ismay say, but there's a plaque to his dad, uh, in which you saw Thomas Henry Ismay. So we talked about, and then there's Stephen on the plaques. Then you can see the turtles are mentioned again. There's another plaque. I thought I said that was the last one, but it's not. Here, leave some for others, Justin, please. This is ignores me. So the you can see it. This is one that Edward Arlen as a tribute to the memory of the late Sir Edward James Arlen, Art Baronet, whose genius as a shipbuilder. Belfast has been made famous throughout the world. This ward, nearly said this yard, this ward bears his name. Funds towards its maintenance having been contributed by his widow Rossa Ireland, who was who's ever evinced. I've never heard of that word before, but my daughter looked it up on Google last night, so it must be true. It is a word called evince. There is a word called evince. The most generous and practical sympathy with all charities connected with the city. So I haven't been able to get a photograph of Eva, Lady Harland. But I'd like to get one. She was obviously did a lot for the poor and the sick of Belfast. And this is the ward here, the Harland ward. So again, the footprint of East Belfast is all over this place. In West Belfast, even though it's in West so city knows in West Belfast. This is Harland here, very grand picture of him, a painting. And so because we have Harland, we have to have Wolf. It's a bit like when I did the street names talk here. There's a Harland Street in East Belfast, Harland Court, etc. Similarly, there's Wolf Street, etc. Here in East Belfast. So because there's this Wolf's mentioned a number of occasions. The East Belfast Division Bed named a recognition of the donation of £1,000 to the Diamond Fund with J. W. Wolf, Gustav Wolf, MP for East Belfast. We lived in a wee house, comparatively wee, off the Station Road. There, between the Station Road in East Belfast and the Hollywood Road, called the Den, and it was nicknamed the Den. Perry said it was. Sorry, Harland. I think it was Harland said it's the Wolf's Den. So he called his house the Den. This is Gustav Wolf here. I like Gustav Wolf because he was kind of whilst he was the MP for East Belfast, he really stayed behind the scenes a little bit. He wasn't as prominent, high profile as both Edward Harland were and Perry. When he was asked to describe what he did in the shipyard, which he had co-founded, he said, Mr. Harland, he makes the speeches. Mr. Perry, he designed the ships, and maybe the other way around. As for me, I smoke the cigars. So that's what he said he did. Even though he co-founded the place. Again, Harland Wolf as an entity is just mentioned here on those index boards. So these guys here, Mr. and Mrs. S.J. Payne. So again, if you read that, you don't think too much about it. And then there's a bed is named in loving memory of Mrs. Saxon J. Payne. But the rest, she died in 1836. Even though she had her own name, she wasn't commemorated under her own name. She was commemorated as Mrs. Saxon J. Payne. So Saxon J. Payne was an employee of the shipyard. And there's two documents here which he's relevant to. This is the safety certificate of the Titanic, and there was a surveyor called Crothers, F. Crothers, and he's commemorated here. His job title, engineer and ship surveyor. So that was clearance for Titanic, but so when Titanic got the clearance that she was fit to sail, as we all know, she was all right until left here. and the captain was English, the lookout was Scottish, and the iceberg was Canadian. But when this F colour certificate it was handed in to Saxon Peter, so that's relevant. And then after the loss of Titanic, he wrote out to the relations of those local people who died in tragedy. So this one, it's hard to say, but it's Mrs. Annie Wood Frost. And again, she lived in East Belfast. She lived off Cypress Avenue and Sunbury Avenue, I think it was, as you go up on the right. And then you can see this is basically saying we've agreed to pay some of her husband's wages, even though he's dead. And you can see here, Saxon J. Clean, Assistant Secretary. So again, just East Belfast, that's Saxon JP, and the reference to that has got huge connection to his name, sorry, has got huge connections to both East Belfast and more particularly, in this case, Titanic. This one is another reference to East Belfast and Harland Wolff, the Rebec bed. Anybody remember Fred Rebec or Dennis Rebec? So my mum, she worked in the shipyard she was one of the ones that did work, and she was a tracer. It was unusual for a woman to work in the shipyard. There were only certain trades that they were kind of encouraged to go to or were appropriate for. And one of them was a tracer. So she was a tracer in the shipyard. But in those days, they had the marriage bar. So, in other words, if you got married, you had to pack the job in. So, my mum had a good job in the shipyard as a tracer, and she packed it all in for to get married to my dad. I think she eternally regrets it. Because look what came first. So, but one good thing about Harlan Wolff, apparently you got a really good training in there. So it meant then that you couldn't get much better training locally. So it meant then if you had Harlan Wolff on your CV as a tracer, then you get jobs elsewhere. So my mum was lucky enough to get other jobs subsequently. Oh, when she was there, the director was a man called Dennis Rebec, and the son of Fred Rebec. So you can see this is the Rebec bed. This is Fred Rebec here, born in Swindon. He lived in East Belfast for the majority of his life. He lived in a little house called Sandown House. When I say little, it's massive. It's still there. It's lots of apartments now. And a final connection then to Harlan Wolff is this particular bed was named by the Victoria Works Entertainment Committee. So that was subsequently, that was 1944. So see, Harlan Wolff is all over the corridor, and basically they're one of the major funders, and led by Margaret Perry. So with Harlan Wolff, what you might be able to see over here, there's another shipyard in Belfast. There's a couple of them. One of the connections to C.S. Lewis, but Macklin Lewis and Macklin McCall. But this is the Workman Ward, memory of Mr. and Mrs. Frank Workman, and then there's Clark here. So the shipyard in question was Workman Clark. It was known as the Wee Yard. So these are the two co-founders of it. This is Frank Workman here as a younger man. And this is the map of back in the day of Queen's Island. You may be able to see here Workman Clark and Co. This is on the east side, but the shipbuilding started over on the other side, over on the dark side and on the north side, and on the County Antrim side. So these are the first two docks here at Clarendon. As the Ritchie brothers started shipbuilding in Belfast, but you can see there's Workman Clark there. So that's where they originated. They were previously over on the County Antrim side, and then came over to east, so the County Down side. This is a little house that Frank Workman lived in here. It still exists to this day. It's off Old Hollywood Road, and it's called Moatlands. So if you're driving the back road to Palace Barracks or Tesco Knocknagunny, other supermarkets are available. It's on the left there. It says no apartments, but it still exists. That was the moat where Frank Workman lived. This is just a number of little plaques. So I tried to zoom in. That's the rabbit one I've talked about. We'll talk about that one shortly. But you can see William Mullen, naval architect, associated for many years with Messrs. Harlan Wolff. And then that's the Harlan Wolff bed. And then that's the one I'm talking about with Gustav Wolff. But there's talk about that one shortly. And again, the Belfast Shipwrights B branch bed in recognition of an annual subscription of £50. Members of both society, Belfast Shipwrights is a C branch, another £50 annual donation. Johnson Hughes, Queen's Island Shipyard Management. Again, the partner roof was all over the corridor. The Trigo bed, named in memory of his wife by William Barnett at Malone House. So Malone House is in South Belfast. That's it. That's it. Presently, it's now a wedding venue, but that's it in the 1950s. Just or not long after the Barnetts moved out. So the Barnetts then lived in Malone House, and then they. That's why the park around Malone House is called Barnett's Park, named after them. But you might have seen from is that Trigo bed. So Trigo Parade is locally, and it's one of 12 or a dozen, I can't remember which one, of streets up off Castlereagh Road named after racehorses, winners of the usually the Derby. So this is Trigo here. And Trigo won the English Derby in 1929. It was owned by William Barnett, who lived in Malone House. So that's a connection. There's a street locally named Trigo Parade, and yet there's a ward in the Royal and named after a racehorse, bizarrely. And the Augustus Warren, this is for Edward, the Augustus Warren Hamilton bed, named by the employees of Messrs. A.W. Hamilton and Co., Princess Dock, token of the respect, 1945. So it's Augustus Hamilton, Augustus Warren Hamilton is the A.W. So this is him here. But I'm going to put in the spot and ask you who this lady is here. I think you know why I'm asking you. See us this, right? So that's his grandfather. No, that's his uncle. It's Uncle Gussie. Yeah. So he would have, and that's the Warren there. It was in Warren. Exactly. Yeah. So Augustus Warren Hamilton is here, and then this is C.S. Lewis, and this is C.S. Lewis's brother, and he was known as was mentioned there. He was known as Warren. He was christened Warren, but he was known as Warney. So that's C.S. Lewis's dad there, and his mum, Flora. So this is another photograph here that has Gussie in it as well, along with Thomas Hamilton, and he was the first rector of. Again, sorry to use strong language and mention Church of Ireland, but he was the first rector of St Mark's in Della.
One of my workers, see, they go all the time. We're at Stelline.
Yeah.
We see it in Holland, they all are willing.
Right. Well, as you can see, it's a bit more. It's 1945, so the hospital itself opened in 1903. So it wasn't one of the original. He wasn't one of the original donors as such, but yes, they were still. I think that would have been when would that have been that they were doing the welding for you guys? 70s. 70s. I have to finish this talk quickly, otherwise Justin is going to clear the place. So that's another name that's on the board is Samuel Cleland Davidson, a name that's known to this day around East Belfast. This is Samuel Cleland Davidson here, and he was the man responsible for the setting up of the Sirocco House here in East Belfast. So he founded the Sirocco Works in 1881. When the Royal Victoria Hospital opened in 1903, it was unlike any other hospital in the world. The building incorporated a cutting-edge ventilation and air purification system designed and built by Davidson Sirocco Works. So this made the Royal Victoria Hospital the first hospital in the world to have air conditioning, more precisely, a mechanically ventilated and temperature regulated air system. The goal was simple but visionary: to improve patient recovery by using a sterile, cool, well ventilated environment. At the time when hospitals were a breeding ground for infections, this system was revolutionary and reduced airborne contaminants and made the wards far more comfortable. A literal breath of fresh air for patients and staff alike. So air conditioning, we heard it here first, was invented in Belfast of all places. And the first place that it was installed was the Royal Victoria Hospital below this Victorian corridor. So saying air conditioning invented in Belfast, usually a place where it's needed 1 or 2 days a year. Certainly not needed today. This is Rock Works. You'll all know where it was. Sadly, there's no remnants of the chimney. That chimney still exists, but that's it. There's derelict, has been for many years. This is the Sirocco. This is the Sirocco worked fan in the corridor. I've never been to it. It's still there, but it's not used for ventilation, for air conditioning of the hospital. But on occasion, European Heritage Open Days, in the middle of September, we used to be able to go and visit the Victoria, the aircon, the first air conditioning in the world. So that's just a few clips of it there. This one here in the middle, Samuel Smiles, again a connection to East Belfast. The ropeworks, in other words, at the side of Collinswater, it was opened by Gustav Fust, I mentioned earlier, but as well as Shillingtons. Again, they lived in East Belfast. Coombe has a Coombe Barber. Murray has a Murray's Tobacco Factory, but also you see W.H. Smiles, managing director. So he was the managing director, whereas Wolf was the chairman. So he was Samuel Smiles was William Holmes Smiles. I'm going to get there. Was his son, and W.H. Smiles was the great uncle of this man, Bear Grylls. So Bear Grylls has a connection to the Smiles family at East Belfast.
Was Smiles an MP?
He was the MP for North Down.
Yeah.
Not that Smiles. It was Walter Dorling Smiles was an MP, and he lost his life in the Princess Victoria disaster of 31st of January 1953. So he was a great uncle of Bear Grylls as well. Did I miss something?
No, I was just going to say that no one could afford a Gillette razor.
That's true. There's me thinking I was going to get something sensible. But you can see here as well, Ewarts. So the Ewarts were very wealthy linen family. And again, they lived in East Belfast. This little house, which is now gone, so it's called Glenmackin. So Glenmackin Tower still exists. It's a nursing home and part of a church. And Glenmackin itself, behind it, is now heading towards Redburn and Hollywood. It's now totally demolished. But there's another connection to the Lewises. So the Ewarts were cousins of C.S. Lewis, and one of Sir William Portis Ewart, who's mentioned on the plaque there, one of his children was called Mary Gundreda Ewart, and she became Forrest. She was a cousin, a close cousin of, not as close as the Perrys, a close cousin of C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis described Gunny Forrest as the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. This one here in the middle, again, you wouldn't get any connection to East Belfast just out of this. J. Sinclair Boyd, MD, medical doctor. And this is him here. And he was an Irish gynecologist, a surgeon, and first president of the Belfast Gaelic League. He was born in Hollywood, and studied at Queen's. And in 1888, he was working at the Hospital for Sick Children in Queen Street as assistant surgeon. He later became a gynecologist at the Ulster Hospital for Children and Women. I think in those days that was in Temple Avenue. In 1895, he became first president of the Belfast branch of the Gaelic League, formed in East Belfast under the patronage of other committed unionists, including Boyd's minister, the Reverend John Baptiste Crozier, and Orange Order Grand Master, the Reverend Richard Rightly Kane. My phone is going. That's my daughter. She must be saying, "You're about to shut up now." Hopefully at 1:15. So in the early days of the Gaelic League, the Belfast Gaelic League, Boyd may have been the league's largest financial donor. He's also involved in the Dublin Pipers Club and adjudicated at music festivals. She's ringing somebody else now. Texting somebody else. Again, just very briefly, Masters G. Hine or Ian and Sons. Again, connection to East Belfast. This is where they lived. This is the Gate Lodge to their house. Anybody recognize it? It's not a great picture. This is I'll give you a clue. This is going down to, this is Pims Avenue. This is the Hollywood Road. So what sits there now? Not Strand Cinema, yeah. So that was the Gate Lodge for where the Haines lived. I say that's the Gate Lodge. So you can imagine what size the house wasn't itself. But Hain had a company called Headline, and again involved in shipping. So this is the Headline building. It still exists to this day. Just down at past the Elder Clock. It's the Elder Clock. Just by. And the Elder Clock's here. And then that's the Salvation Army homeless place is here. And then the old Nan Barry tea place is here, leading up to the up to Warren Street. So the building still exists there at the Trophy Place. So that was the Ames. And again, with a connection to East Belfast. Again, Dr. and Mrs. J. King Kerr. They were, he was a doctor, lived on the King's Road. I don't have an image of him. Again, another connection for Edward for C.S. Lewis. Arnolia, Richard Whitehawk Leslie, and MD, medical doctor. He was a contemporary, a friend of C.S. Lewis's dad. That's what Albert, his dad. And he lived at a house called St. Heliers, which was on the Belmont Road. And he lived there from 1894 until his death in 1931. He was also known. He was the doctor at Campbell College. He was referred to as Spotted Dick. And you get a cream for that now. And for various reasons, he elicited much inspiration from C.S. Lewis, his brother. So C.S. Lewis, he had a very squeaky voice. So C.S. Lewis and his brother Warnie used to mock him essentially. So he's there as well, a donor. Again, he lived on the Belmont Road. This is the last one there. I don't have much more information about this, but in memory of John Matthews and William Matthews, he was an evangelist. This bed is named by their sister, Mary Ann Matthews, and then she's put her address, 71 Belfast Street. That was on 1933. The one beside them, it was named by their daughter, Mary Ann Matthews, again, the same address and the same year. So, again, East Belfast is literally all over the Victorian corridor in the Royal Victoria Hospital in West Belfast. So it just shows you that the power and love of money, especially driven by Harlan Wood, was responsible for the opening of this pioneering hospital here in Belfast. So, and the last one, that was supposed to be the grand finale. I completely forgot this one. So the Palmerston bed was named by the Palmerston Players, an amateur theatrical company. So again, I think the Palmerston question would be over nearly Smiles family lived. They lived in a big place called West Bank. So in other words, off the Palmerston Road, they're off the Hollywood Road. So you can see their rise and shine. It's appropriate because they're really can wake up now. Thank you very much.